Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1634.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. I'm revved up and very excited to be across the pond today, talking with a great guest from North London by the name of Russell Hayes. Hey, Russell, welcome to Cars Yeah. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Hey, Mark, I'm all ready.
All right, we'll have some fun today. Before I do a proper introduction, though, Russell, I'm going to ask you this. What's one little question most people don't know about you?
Well, I had a bit of a think about this, and I think it's that once I had ballroom dancing lessons.
You did? Well, you know, when I was a kid, they did what was here in the United States called cotillion. Do you have that over there in the UK? Cotillion?
Kind of line dancing, folk dancing.
This was kind of where young men were taught proper dancing etiquette. You had to wear white gloves, and the girls dressed up and us boys dressed up. And it was like junior high age, and you would go in and you'd walk across the room and properly ask a young lady to dance, and they would teach you how to dance. It was kind of a fun little process. I think I have the word right, cotillion. I hope I'm not messing that up, but
no, that sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
So do you still do ballroom dancing to this day?
It's an unusual thing I did at university. I tried joining every club I could, and just to try everything. And I tried the ballroom dancing club, and I tried the rock and roll dancing club. And I didn't do too bad at rock and roll dancing, but the ballroom dancing, I just crushed people's toes. So I thought, yeah, I've tried that. It was fun. Give it up. Move on to the next thing.
Well, it's kind of like I did that Western line dancing with my wife once. And actually, I was better at it than I thought I would be. But that, again, you have these processes versus just rock and roll. You just do whatever you feel like doing, right?
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Well, listen, let me give you a proper introduction, and we're going to talk about a cool new book that you've authored. Russell Hayes originates from Somerset, England, and now lives in North London. During 14 years of motoring journalism in print, television, and online, clients included the BBC, original Top Gear program, Channel 4's Driven, The Times, and London Evening Standard. He was a UK civil service press officer from 2003 to 2019, but in his spare time, he wrote 7 motoring history books on subjects including Lotus, the Earl's Court Motor Show, the Volkswagen Golf, Volkswagen Beetle and Bus, and the Aston Martin V8 cars of 1969 to 2000. Now a full-time author, 2 more books are in the pipeline for 2021 and 2022. His newest book, though, is titled Volkswagen Beetles and Buses. It celebrates the 75th and 70th anniversaries of Volkswagen's most iconic vehicles, cars that we certainly love over here in the States for sure. They're loved all over the world. From the first Beetles to the buses that became synonymous with the generation. We'll be back in a minute to talk with Russell, but first a word from our valuable sponsors. These are the folks that make this show possible. So give them a listen, give them a little love, and we'll be right back. Keep your seatbelts on. Do you have a pet in your household that loves to go for a ride? Our pets are part of our families, but they can be very hard on your vehicle's interior. Well, Covercraft has you covered. They offer a wide variety of solutions to protect your vehicle's interiors from Fido's rough treatment. Canine cargo area covers are padded for comfort and provide door-to-door protection. Pet pads have built-in features to keep cargo areas and seats protected. Covercraft solutions cover cargo areas, bucket or bench seats, and protect from damaging claws, pet fur, hair, mud, moisture, and that occasional drool from permanently damaging your vehicle's delicate surfaces. Choose from a variety of styles and colors that cover almost every vehicle made. Is your dog getting a little old? Covercraft even has a pet ramp so your trusted companion can get himself into and out of your vehicle. Here's something special to you from me at Cars Yeah. If you go to covercraft.com and use the code YEAH120, YEAH120, you'll get 10% off your Covercraft order. Go to covercraft.com today and use the code YEAH120 and you'll get this special 10% off. Tell Fido it's from me. That's covercraft.com. Use YEAH120 at checkout. Covercraft, they've got you covered. Woof. American Collectors Insurance, that's how I now protect my Porsche Turbo, the one I call my Orange Crush. Are you insuring your classic vehicles on your regular daily driver auto policy? Then your special vehicles are at risk. Your regular auto insurance carrier won't tell you how much you'll get until after a claim, and more than likely, you'll be in for a rude awakening. With agreed value policy from American Collectors Insurance, you'll be paid your vehicle's full agreed value. No surprises. If you're driving your collector car less than 5,000 miles a year, do what I did. Call American Collectors Insurance and get your very own agreed value policy tailored to your specific vehicle. If you're like me, you're picky about who works on your special ride. A great policy allows you to choose your repair shop of choice, and that means you'll know the job is done right. I shopped around and decided to protect my car with American Collectors Insurance. They've been protecting vehicles since 1976. Give them a call for a quote today at 866-ACI. Yeah, that's 866-224-9324. And protect the ones you love. I did at American Collectors Insurance. Classic car insurance designed by collectors for collectors. All right, Russell, we are back. So as we continue on this journey of your life today, I would like you to share a success quote or a mantra, some kind of saying that is important to you. It's a nice way to get the VW wheels turning here on Cars Yeah. So Russell, take the wheel.
Yeah, I've thought of something which I think applies to me, and certainly something which I'd like to aspire to. It's a quote from Iacocca, the father of the Ford Mustang. Mm-hmm. And he said, the ability to concentrate and to use time well is everything. I like to think I aspire towards that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is how you put that into your system. Lee Iacocca, obviously a very successful man in so many ways. So give me one example of perhaps as you were writing this book, and we're going to dive into this book a little deeper here, of how you applied that into how you authored your newest book, or maybe any of the books that you work on.
I kind of have to work out how I'm going to balance finding my pictures with my initial research and then maybe going out to interview people. So I start off with gathering everything I already have in the house, in my office all together, like all the road tests and all the existing books. Then I kind of make a hit list of people I want to go and see. And then I work out which days I'm going to go to the archive. It might be months ahead. And at the moment, I can't go to any archives. And have a big sort of hit list of pictures I'd like, and go there and try and maximize my time. I mean, I just love spending an entire day in an archive. It's just my favorite thing to do. And on the Aston Martin book, I found an archive in a motor museum which hadn't really been used before. And it was full of letters from the company, all around the company, from about 40 years.
Oh, wow.
I just sat there, and they only let you go in for one day at a time. So I just sat there from as soon as they opened at 10 until they closed at 4:30. And I didn't eat anything, and I worked out how many times I could go to the bathroom, and I just got my head down. So I really do know how to maximize my archive time.
Well, yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's hilarious. The fact, okay, they must have been going, you gonna ever go home, dude? Maybe I would just leave you the keys. You can stay all night. I'll bet you would have if they'd allowed that.
Yeah. That'd be great.
For anybody who's never gone to archives, they are fascinating. I got to go into the archives at the Ferrari factory some time ago. And they were opening up books, for instance, a car that Niki Lauda raced in F1, and notes in there from the mechanics and from him and from the different people going, well, the car is doing this, the car is doing that. And it's fascinating because you can glean a lot of different information that you wouldn't normally glean in other areas, right?
Yeah, and if you know what you're looking for, you can sometimes pick up stuff that nobody else would be able to identify. I mean, again, going back to the Aston Martin book, I found a contact sheet of an Aston Martin which had an engine fire, and it was just a lot of burnt cars, a lot of shots of a burnt engine bay. Mm-hmm. And I worked out that this related to a story that somebody had told me about one of the V8 development engines catching fire while they were testing it. Mm-hmm. And melting the bonnet because the bonnet was fiberglass. Oh! I looked hard enough, and I could work out that there was a V8 engine sitting in there, and the bonnet looked as if it was fiberglass. So I found the photograph of this anecdote that people have been saying for years, and I'd never seen a picture of. Its discoveries are great.
Did you discover what was causing those fires?
Oh, I think it was a kind of engine blowback through the carburetor.
Yeah, almost like an intake backfire. Remember an early Porsche 911 I had that the air boxes had a problem with those. They ended up developing a quick fix, kind of a pop-off valve, but I learned the hard way in my Porsche. I think it was a 74 that I had on a street, and I downshifted and just heard this explosion and opened up the back of the car, and there was just plastic bits everywhere, and I'm like, what the heck happened? And learned about backfire explosions and those things. Well, let's talk about this new book of yours. And I'll remind the listeners, it's titled Volkswagen Beetles and Buses, celebrating the 75th and 70th anniversaries of the Volkswagen. This is coming out this fall, so we're already into September. Man, this year's flying by despite all the craziness. So let's talk a little bit about why you chose this subject at this time, and what were some of the things that really excited you about this newest book you've authored?
Well, I was really lucky to be asked to do this, and I jumped at it straight away because it was I know a lot's been written about the Beetle and the Bus already, but it's such a fantastic story. It's got so many elements to it, and it was because I got the chance to combine the design history of both vehicles as time went on with the social history, with how they changed over time. And they changed their meaning depending on the time they were being produced and the countries they were sold in. I mean, they meant Beetles meant different things to different people in different countries. Mm-hmm. I mean, it meant a different thing in the States in the 1950s to how Germans thought of it. They thought of it as just a car, and the Americans thought of it as something completely radical and anti-Detroit.
Yes.
And I love the way the Mexicans took on the car in the later life it had as its own, as their own car, virtually, as a Mexican car. They didn't think of it as a German car. Mm-hmm. And it's been very interesting how the bus has kind of come out of the shadow of the Beetle in recent years. It's become so desirable, those antique buses. And they've become a shorthand for good times and travel and optimism. And that iconography of their front and the split screen front is everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. I spent a summer while I was doing the book on holiday in Europe, and every time I saw a picture of a camper van or a bus on a T-shirt or a biscuit tin, I took a photo, and you realize they were everywhere. The image of the camper van is everywhere now.
Oh, absolutely. And I hear inklings of VW coming out with a kind of a retro version, kind of like Ford's come out with the Bronco, and, Mustang just keeps reintroducing itself. And I mean, Porsche does in a way, but when you bring back, like VW did when they brought back that new old Beetle and it looked like the old car, I mean, it just makes you smile. What do you think it is about the Beetle and about the bus that makes almost everyone smile? I don't know anybody that doesn't look at those and go, is it the memories?
It's the memories, and I think fundamentally it's the shape. The people have often said that the Beetle with the round hood on it and the big round headlamps looks like a smiling face. Mm-hmm. And the bus is kind of the same. It's they have no aggression about them. They just look friendly, and I think they were in production for such a long time, and they went through so many transitions that they ended up carrying all their history through. Like the bus was used for people protesting against the war in Vietnam, and it was used by the hippies, and then it was used by the customizers and the Californians, and likewise the Beetle went through its sort of custom car stage, and they carry all this cultural baggage through with them, and I think that lodges in people's minds. That's what people don't know quite how it got there, but that's the feeling that comes with them now.
I think so. I think it's absolutely right. My sister had a Bug. I had a Ghia. And so Volkswagens were part of our early lives when we were in high school. I had a guest on the show here, David Bernardo, who owns a company, Z Electric in San Diego. And he takes old VW buses and Bugs and puts electric motors in the back of them. So you think about bringing that old iconic car up to the future. It makes them much faster, much more reliable. And it's just... But again, those things make you smile too. First time I saw one of his was during Car Week in Carmel by the Sea, and it went by, and my son says, "Hey, look, Dad, an old VW Bug." And I turned around and it went by, and I looked at him, and he said, "Why isn't the engine running?" And we chased the guy down, and that's when I met David, and he opens the back, and I just got this big smile with this big metal box with 3 big wires coming out, and he goes, "It's electric." So yeah.
And starting to back companies that are doing that now. They're getting into it.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Well, I always ask my guests about a big challenge, and I would assume every time you write a book, and you've done so many, there certainly are challenges, maybe even walls that you run into. Can you talk a little bit about maybe a particular challenge you met with writing this current book? And then when you run into these things, how do you get your way around those roadblocks?
I think it's always trying to find something new to say. I want to always add something original. So the best thing I thought I could do with Volkswagen is to bring some color into it by speaking to some people who have them in the time. And it's not always easy to find, people who actually owned them when they were new. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of people who owned them when they were classic cars. But I wanted to find people who had them when they were just beat up second-hand cars. So luckily I found, I did have a friend of mine who had one in the early 1980s. She had a Beetle and took her to university, and she had all sorts of adventures in it. And through a friend of a friend, I found a guy in California who I interviewed who took it on road trips. And he loved his bus. He had an orange bus with what was the conversion called? That was the Westphalia conversion.
Oh, the Westphalia? Yeah. I was just in our little town yesterday, went for a boat ride with some friends, and we came out, and there was one of those sitting in the parking lot. And I stopped, and I said, "Oh, Westphalia." My wife always rolls her eyes and goes, "Another old car." And but yeah, I love those Westphalias. Those are cool.
Yeah. So I just added a bit of color by people's personal experiences and how people related to them growing up. I just wanted to add that bit of color, and that's something I thought I could do. So I hope that comes across.
Oh yeah, definitely it does, and I think it's great. It brings a whole personality to just the simple, say, books that just quote facts and things, and we've all read those, but bringing that personality in the book is one of the things I really loved about your book. You mentioned with this pandemic this year, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I've been asking all my guests about how it's affected them and their work. First and foremost, you, your family, your friends, everybody healthy and okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to say that we've been all fine.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that. So how has this pandemic, you mentioned not being able to go and do actual interviews or go to archives. Of course, you have the internet at your disposal now that authors back in the day never dreamed could be possible, where you could find answers in so many ways just by sitting in your desk. But how have you worked around the pandemic this year and still been able to produce what you do?
I've had to reorganize myself. I'm working currently on another Aston Martin book, which is a major history of Aston Martin, but I've got until the end of August next year to do it. And I've had to work on the basis that I won't be able to physically get back to my archive until probably next year now. Mm-hmm. So I've had to rearrange everything so that I can do everything I can on the internet first, and then I can go back and look at the paper copies and look at the printed images. And I guess do some interviews by phone. One of the things I really got into was going to the British Library here in London, which was it's a fantastic resource. It's a really modern building. It's a great place to work, and their stock of reference books are fantastic. And it's free. And you order a book 2 days before you go, and you can spend the day in their lovely reading rooms. But of course, they just shut down. That really changed my access to rare books. They're starting to open up now, but I've started to buy a lot of books on eBay. My library's got a lot bigger, certainly since lockdown.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's a good place to find, especially some old books. I've found some great old automotive books on eBay, aside from all the other resources out there for sure. Well, I'm going to take a short break. We're going to thank our sponsors here. We come back. I want to dive into your personal passion for cars, Russell. I want to talk a little bit about cars and you and your history and why you have this love for automobiles. So sit tight. Everybody keep their seatbelts on as we chug along in our VW bus or Beetle here, and we'll be right back. Let's step away from the conversation to talk about our charity of choice here at Cars Yeah, America's Automotive Trust. America's Automotive Trust is a group of like-minded nonprofits that are working together to preserve and promote car culture across the country. Together, they provide scholarships and grants to aspiring technicians and restoration artists. They provide youth education programs and bring communities together through automotive-related events, car shows, and drives. Among those nonprofits is RPM Foundation, a terrific organization working to keep our favorite collector cars on the road. RPM was created to ensure that the specialized skills needed to care for classic automobiles, boats, and motorcycles continue to be passed down from generation to generation. They do this by supporting training for young people with a passion for restoration and setting them up with mentors who can share their valuable knowledge. So far, they've awarded more than $3.5 million to restoration education projects across 35 states. Incredible! To learn more about RPM or to donate to their mission, visit www.rpm.foundation. You'll be glad you did. My favorite collector car magazine is Keith Martin's Sports Car Market. I've been a subscriber for decades. Sports Car Market is the Wall Street Journal for enthusiasts and collectors. It's your monthly must-read, whether you dream of owning a collector car, maybe you have two, or maybe you've got 200. Sports Car Market has been around for 31 years, and it's filled with valuable articles, intelligent write-ups, and the latest auction sales. Go to sportscarmarket.com and subscribe today. Here's a couple deals I have for you just for listening here on Cars Yeah. If you use the checkout code Cars Yeah, you'll receive a 50% discount on your digital subscription at Sports Car Market. That's an exclusive offer from Cars Yeah. And guess what? Here's another deal. If you'd like to get the actual magazine, use the code BSH for Buy, Sell, Hold. That's code BSH, and you'll get $10 off your annual print subscription. That's right, $10 off. Both of these are exclusive offers here at Cars Yeah for Sports Car Market Magazine. Just go to sportscarmarket.com and get your deals today. What do you do after running a race team for 27 years with over 100 professional wins, multiple wins at the 24-Hour of Daytona, and a win at Le Mans? Well, if you're Kevin Buckler, a racer and the racing group's team owner, you create Adobe Road Winery. Located in Petaluma, California, he and his team have created a winning combination with the Racing Series, 4 ultra-premium red wine blends that are in a class of their own. Like racing, these wines comprise of art, precision, engineering, science, and a whole lot of fun. You can choose from 4 blends titled Redline, Apex, Shift, and the 24. Today I'm going to tell you about Redline. It's a rich and complex blend delivering a taste of ripe blackberries, black cherry licorice, and a hint of toasty oak. An added very cool option is that this features the world's first interactive wine label. That's right. When you pour the wine, the 3-dimensional tachometer actually hits the red line. It's incredible. The Racing Series is a killer gift for the automotive enthusiast in your life, and I've got a deal for you. If you use the code CARSYEAH, all one word in all caps, when you go to checkout, you'll get $10 off any purchase of wines from the Racing Series. The wine ships promptly and arrives quickly right at your door. Use the code CARSYEAH at checkout for $10 off of your purchase today. There's always a seat at the table for excellence with the Racing Series. Go to adoberoadwines.com and use the code CARSYEAH to save $10 today. Cheers! All right, Russell, we are back. We pulled the VW over the side of the road so we could have a little chat here. I'd love for you to share a story that instigated your personal passion for automobiles. It sounds like Aston Martins are one of your loves. Of course, being a Brit, I can see why. They're beautiful cars. You love VWs. But is there a pivotal moment in your life when you knew you were going to be a car guy?
Well, I think I kind of owe it all to my dad, and he did one very simple thing. I think when I was about 11 or so, he said, "You need to start reading comics," and he put a classic car magazine in my hand, and I remember it was a copy of Thoroughbred and Classic Cars, and that was it. That kind of switched my interests, and I kind of started with this interest in old cars rather than new cars, so I sort of started back to front. So I was always starting with motoring history, and I was looking back at my library today, and I think one of the first car books I got was A History of the Mini by a guy called Rob Goulding, and it was published in 1979. So I would have been about 12 then when I bought that. And that book just got me obsessed on Minis to start off with. So my first car just had to be a Mini.
Of course it did. My parents did the same thing. You know, I was in the back as a kid, and I'm I think I'm probably a lot older than you, but one of the things I always read was Mad Magazine when I was a kid, and I was always into cars. But the first car book my parents ever bought me, and you'll know the answer to this question, I'm sure, some people don't, was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And of course, that was written by
Ian Fleming.
Ian Fleming. And every time I say that to people, they go, the James Bond guy wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? And I go, yeah, he did. And I still have that book to this day. I mean, the poor spine, I've read it so many times, is kind of falling apart and so forth. But that was the first, what I call big boy book. I think I was about 9, maybe 8 or 9. I was not very old, and that kind of got me into reading car books. And so I've always appreciated my parents doing that. It's a great thing for you listeners out there that have young kids in your life is, buy them cool car books. You'll spark some interest aside from taking them to car shows and so forth. Well, you mentioned that first car, and I do ask all my guests about a first really special vehicle. Is it that Mini, or is there another car that came into your life that had great meaning for you?
It is that Mini, really. It was I desperately wanted a Mark I Mini as my first car, even though they were about 20 years old by the time I was looking to get my first car. And I became a bit obsessed with the Italian Job, and I wanted a Mini Cooper that looked like the Italian Job, and of course that wasn't going to happen. So I ended up with a 1965 Mini 850 with the little handlebar bumpers, and it still had the little drawstrings to open the doors.
Yeah.
And I took that backwards and forwards to university in the north of England. I think it was about a 250-mile trip each way, and I just went up and down motorways and froze and got wet feet. And,
yeah,
I love that car.
Yeah, they're really cool. You know, I have a longtime sponsor here, good friend of mine, Chris Kimball. Good morning, Chris, because he listens to this show every morning. And he's a very tall guy. I'm not, but he's very tall, towers over me. And he has a little old Mini Cooper. And I always laugh because I think about him getting in that. But I've driven those and gotten in them. They're surprisingly spacious inside.
It's still astonishing today. Yeah.
Yeah, with the new ones today, you're exactly right. We bought my daughter one, and when I drove her off to college, we took a 1,500-mile road trip to take her to college so she could have her vehicle there. I was really surprised how much room was, and of course, a young woman going off to college has to bring everything with her, and we stuffed that car full. I couldn't believe everything we got in it. My son, I think he took a backpack. That was about it when he ran off to college on the East Coast. But the little 850, I mean, just an awesome classic car. What's your best memory of having that vehicle?
I think my best memory is how I coped with its problems. Really, it was a hydroelastic Mini. Do you remember there were Minis which had fluid suspension for a while?
Okay.
And they used to leak, so it used to droop on one side. So when I went out with my friends, I used to get them to sit on one side of the car, so it balanced it up.
Put your heavier friend on the other side.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten all about hydroelastic suspension. Oh my gosh. You kind of go, why would they do that? But you know, they were trying a lot of different things back in the day. So I think it's very cool. Now, do you have an old Mini today, or do you have aspirations of owning one again?
No, sadly, I can't really run a classic now because in the middle of North London, you can just park on the street. So I've got to have something that's practical. I can park on the street and not worry about.
I understand. Well, let's crawl into your head a little bit here, Russell. I'm going to become your psychologist today, have you in my office, and I'm going to ask it this way. So, Russell, if you woke up tomorrow and you were manifest as a vehicle, not what you want to be, but how you perceive your attributes in a vehicle, as a vehicle, what would Russell Hayes be and why?
I think I would be an MGB GT.
Cool.
I would see myself as maybe friendly, reliable, and with a little bit of style.
I wanted one of those so bad when I was a kid, and my dad had an MGTC, a 49, when I was very little. And he said, well, do you want a car you'll be working on all the time, or a car that you can actually get in and drive every day? And I think that he drove his TC to work every day. I mean, that's brave soul he was. Wonderful car, though. It started my passion. So the MGB GT, have you had a chance to drive any of those?
I probably did drive one a while ago, but not for a long time. But I saw one passing in the street the other day, and I thought, yeah, they're kind of perfectly proportioned. I mean, they now look like little cars. They weren't thought about as little cars in the day, but with that fastback, which I think was styled by Pininfarina, it's just a very dashing little car, but you know, still quite non-threatening, friendly, and you know you can get all the spare parts for it.
They're lovely. I think they're just beautiful little cars. All those cars from the 60s that were those little open top, beautiful little cars. Well, let's wander off into what I call the last lap in that MGB GT. I'm going to fire off a series of questions and have you give me some quick blips of that MG throttle. So here we go. What's one of your personal habits, Russell, that you believe has contributed to your many successes?
I think being interested in other people and giving them the space to talk and then listening.
I do that every day. It's quite fun, actually. If you could have a drink or a meal with anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased, can't wait for this answer, who would that individual be?
I think it would be Heinrich Nordhoff, the Director General of Volkswagen, from after the war until 1968, because he was such a remarkable man in so many. He put that factory back upon its feet after the British handed it over. He started the whole ethos of Volkswagen's evolution and customer service first. Started all the export markets, and he was also a real good boss by the sounds of things. His workers really did respect him. He started sort of workers' cooperatives, and he used to bring the Berlin Philharmonic into the Works Canteen once a year to play classical music. And he brought art exhibitions to Wolfsburg as well. So he was just a kind of very enlightened patriarch.
Wow, sounds like a great person to write a book about. Yeah, I didn't know those things.
But he was a fascinating guy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't know that about. I'll have to do a little more research into him. That's fascinating. Now, when it comes to resources, what is a great resource? Actually, let me back up one step. I want to ask you about an automotive advice perhaps someone else has offered you. Now, this could be when it comes to buying vehicles or just researching vehicles or anything when it comes to automotive advice. What's the best advice you've received?
It's about something about buying. It's to not be afraid of high mileages. If a car's done a high mileage, but it's been well kept and it's gone up and down the freeway and been serviced properly, I'd much rather have it and save the money than have a lower mileage car, which is more expensive, but might have just been slogged around the town.
Yes, absolutely. Well, how about a great resource? I started to touch on that. Is there one that you'd like to share?
One I've started using is the New York Times Archive, online digital archive. It's called Times Machine, and you can access any issue of the New York Times back to 1851.
Whoa.
Their search engine. I've used it for my American research a lot. Put in Volkswagen 1948, and you get up all the articles that were written during that time. It's a really great resource.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that. Well, fantastic. I always love it when my guests bring a new resource to our awareness here. Now, I always ask my guests about a favorite book. Obviously, we're going to put Volkswagen Beetles and Buses by Russell Hayes in this column on your show notes page. But is there another book you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I'd like to share, and I think you already know it, I believe, is Peter Grimsdale.
Yes.
Who's a friend and a fellow author. His recent book, High Performance, When Britain Rules the Roads.
Yes.
It's an automotive history that reads like a novel. It's such a quick read, and I just tore through it. It brings auto history to life with social history at the same time, and connecting all these people in the 1960s who were in British automotive field in different areas like motorsport and industry, like Colin Chapman and William Lyons and John Cooper. And he really drew it together, how they all interconnected with each other and how certain events were happening at certain times. And it was such a great read. I mean, you can tell he's a novelist.
Yes.
I just tore through that one.
Absolutely. Of course, Peter's been a guest here on Cars Yeah. It's a great book. I'll put a link to that book, to Volkswagen Beetles and Buses by Russell Hayes. You can get your hands on a copy when they come out here very shortly in the Cars Yeah show notes page for Russell. Just go to carsyeah.com, type in Russell Hayes in the search bar, and his page will pop up with all these great links. We're about to roll into the checkered flag, but first, a little message from a sponsor of mine who wrote a book I think you might find interesting and very useful. We'll be right back. If you're listening to Cars Yeah, you've probably spent some time working on your favorite ride. But how confident are you working on your finances? You may be able to rebuild a fuel injection system, but can you decipher the details of a mutual fund? If you're like me, investments, insurance, annuities, budgeting, and other financial concepts may seem a bit daunting, but what if I told you there's a book that describes these subjects and more in an easy-to-read and a very humorous way? My friend Chris Kimball, CFP, a longtime sponsor and past guest here on Cars Yeah, has written that book, and it's titled The Saga of Ike and Penny, a couple's humorous journey through the confusing world of finance. It's a fun look at things you need to know, everything from investing to effective ways to get rid of credit card debt, and it's probably the only book on finance with a VMAX on the front cover and a classic Mini Cooper on the back. The book's available at Amazon for just $10, and this book will dramatically improve the direction of your financial future. I gave copies to each of my children. All securities are through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Christopher Kimball Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Get your copy, The Saga of Ike and Penny, today. All right, Russell, we are back, and today's a fun day for you because you've hit the jackpot. I'm going to buy you a very cool car today. Something fun. In fact, if you don't have a garage, I'll even buy you a garage to park it in. How's that sound? So you don't have to leave it on the streets there in North London and worry at night about somebody messing with it. But there's a couple rules to my game since I'm doing all the purchasing today. You can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with or invest or do something else. You got to keep it. It's got to tick all the boxes. I want you to drive this thing out to the beautiful countryside there in London and enjoy it, or in England. And here's the kicker, though. It's the only one cool car you can have. So again, it has to be something that does everything for you, and most importantly, makes you smile when you walk up to that vehicle. So what can I buy Russell Hayes today?
I would like a Series 1 Lotus Esprit.
Okay. That's very cool. I'm not surprised it's a British car.
And of course, it'd have to be white because the first James Bond film I ever saw was The Spy Who Loved Me.
Yes.
In 1977. And that was the James Bond car that stuck in my mind as a kid, and I haven't been able to get it out. And I just think that it's still such a beautiful car. It's so impressive, and it would be such a sense of occasion every time I took it out.
Well, I would think so. Just and you could even drive it off the end of a pier, and it would just sprout little winglets and go sailing through the water.
Quite practical, really.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the favorite thing about that car was the vehicle theft device. If you remember, I believe the guy broke the window and the car blows up. So it takes care of the assailant. I'm not sure your insurance company would go for that, but that always makes me laugh. One of the things I hate most is if somebody messes with my car. I'm so careful with them, and then somebody vandalizes it or tries to steal it or whatever. Well, the Lotus Esprit, have you ever had an opportunity to drive one? I've never driven one.
I did drive one for my first book, which was on Lotus, which included driving impressions. So I managed to do a deal with a classic car dealer where I spent a whole day taking out cars and then writing out my impressions. So I remember the Esprit. I think it was an Esprit Turbo, and it was cool. You fit so low down, and they still feel so wide.
Yeah,
really set the road rushing at you. It was brilliant.
Oh, yeah, it's like driving a race car. But Lotus Esprit, well, you're going to have fun in that car.
Hopefully, and hopefully I won't have too many bits fall off it while I'm driving it.
I hope not. I hope not. No, I'll make sure I send you over a really nice one, okay? Don't worry about that. Very cool. Well, listen, Russell, you've taken us on a wonderful ride today. I knew this would be fun. I want to thank you for sharing your journey. I also want to thank Steve Roth and my friends at Quarto Books, or the publishers of this new book by Russell, Volkswagen Beetles and Buses. I'll make sure I put links to how you can get a copy when this book comes out. Before I let you go, though, before you drive off into this sunset in that beautiful Lotus Esprit, could you share maybe one little parting piece of wisdom or guidance with our listeners?
Don't be afraid to admit what you don't know and ask somebody to explain it for you.
Absolutely. You can learn an awful lot by asking and then listening. I love it. Russell, thanks for being so generous today. Oh, before I let you go, how can people find out more about you? Do you have a website? Are you active on social media?
I think at the moment, probably my Amazon author page has all the details of all my books on there.
Okay, great. I'll make sure I put a link to that on Russell's show notes page so you can learn more about him. And again, if you love old VWs and Beetles, or you can check out on his author page all of the books. And of course, you can get your hands on any of them on his Amazon author page. I'll put a link to. I encourage you to. You're going to like this new book, though. It's really, really fantastic. I got to see kind of a preview issue in a PDF form. I can't wait to get my hands on the actual book. It's actually spectacular, and it's actually a lot of fun, too. It's going to bring bring back some great memories for you, no doubt. Russell, thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, and for sharing your experiences with me and the listeners. This has been grand. Until you and I talk again, my friend, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you very much. Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.